Good Monday morning. It is Monday, April the 13th, 2026. It is about 9:15 a.m. as we record this. And we are doing an early morning update for our severe storms that are looking likely this afternoon with hail over 2 inches possible, an elevated tornado risk for southern Minnesota. And then I'm going to touch on it, just a heads up that there is a heavy rain possibility on Tuesday that could lead to some localized flooding. Taking a look at our radar, not a lot going on yet. There's one little thunder shower down here towards Madelia. There's some showers back into South Dakota. But what I'm really looking at is this little line between Wilmer down towards Redwood Falls, back down south and east of Marshall. It wraps around and heads back towards Brookings and Sioux Falls. And that's a boundary. And there are several of them in the atmosphere. We'll see here as we go into our visible satellite imagery. And this is a loop, and that is pretty much showing the current. You can see one of those boundaries right here across eastern South Dakota where it's clear versus the speckled clouds. And that just doesn't quite go anywhere. And this is going into the overnight. This is the visible imagery, or the satellite imagery switches over to the infrared because we don't have visible light, of course, overnight. And you can see those thicker stratus clouds starting to move in across northern Minnesota. And then those keep moving south. But you'll notice in the last few frames, they kind of stall over east central Minnesota, but keep building across southwestern Minnesota. And that's going to leave here the Twin Cities. St. Cloud, you're right on the edge of that. You may be in the clouds by the time this is all said and done. But here in the Twin Cities into western Wisconsin and back into southwestern Minnesota, all in the clear, which means that if we get any breaks in this cloud cover, we're going to get some heating, and that could really complicate the picture for this afternoon, making the storms even stronger. Taking a look at our day one severe weather outlook, courtesy of the National Weather Service in Chanhassen. This is their graphic. You can see the general marginal risk of severe storms from Fergus Falls to Brainerd up towards Duluth and up on the North Shore. Surrounding that surrounds an area in yellow for a slight risk of severe storms, and that covers Hayward, Rice Lake, back to Montevideo and Morris, back down to Worthington, and then across northern Iowa. But it's this area in the orange, the one that's labeled 3. That is an enhanced risk of severe weather that covers Eau Claire, the southern Twin Cities, Redwood Falls, down to about Fairmont, and then all of southeastern Minnesota, south and east of that line, well into western Wisconsin, including Eau Claire and Toma. So basically, if you're north of Highway 212 and north of Wisconsin 29, you're okay. You're not in that enhanced risk. That's all south of that line. But that's not to say that we couldn't get some storms that creep out of that and get up towards like Buffalo in Minnesota or St. Croix Falls or Rice Lake in Wisconsin. Taking a look at our hail outlook, you can see that red area. That is the enhanced area overlaying with the red here. That is where that enhanced comes from, is our 30% chance of large hail. The hatching is an intensity scale of 1. And what that means is we could see hail in excess of 2 inches in that area. And that hatched area goes all the way up almost to the Twin Cities, covers almost all of Wisconsin. I would say really the southern half of Minnesota and then the extreme eastern parts of South Dakota. And that same area is going to be the highlight for our slight risk, our 2% risk of tornadoes. But that hatch ridge, again, the hatch covers all of southern Minnesota and most of central and a good chunk of southern Wisconsin. And in that hatched area, we can see this area of brown and yellow. The brown is a 5% chance and the yellow is a 10%, which that is fairly rare for this far north this early. So southeastern Minnesota from roughly Fairmont up to about Wabasha, over to about I would say Eau Claire, probably Baraboo area, not Baraboo, Portage. Still not what I'm looking for. I can't think of the town I'm thinking of. Stevens Point, that's it. Plover is what I was thinking of, and Stevens Point. Back down almost to La Crosse, and then basically right back across that I-90 corridor. That area is going to be our real watch area. But here in the Twin Cities, we're not out of the woods. We're going to be in the earlier formation of the storms. And that first 2 to 3 hours of storm development is going to be where everything happens. Also of note is our wind risk, a 15% chance across all of southern Minnesota into southern Wisconsin. That extends all the way out into western Michigan. And that's going to be more of an overnight threat. As the storms develop, at first they're going to be supercell, individual discrete supercells. Those will have the much higher chances of very large hail and tornadoes. And then as the activity develops by 7, 8 o'clock, that's going to congeal into one big mass of storms that moves east across Wisconsin into Michigan. And they will be the ones who see the primary high wind risk. So that is your look at today's very busy weather forecast. I am lead forecaster John Lamb here at Black Sheep Weather. Here are our social medias if you want to follow us and you get updates more rapidly than we do the YouTube videos. I'm working on that part, the YouTube videos, that is. And so you can also hit the like button if you like what we do, subscribe if you want to see what we're doing and have it pop up in your now viewing feed or your subscriptions feed. And you can click on the bell for notifications when we